Well, hello everybody. It's the first time live in Texas. Trying to get everything all set up here. Watch me, okay? Here we go. Oh, there's my kitchen. And hopefully I'll fit right here in the front. Here I am, here I am, here I am. Yay! Okay, I need more light that way. Hang on 1 second, I have to turn on some more lights. There we go, that's a little bit better anyway. How y'all doing? It's been a while. Excuse me, how are you all doing? Not quite as close because I've got this nice big island here to work with now. My kitchen is no longer blue. My blue kitchen was in Maryland, and this kitchen is in Texas. And it's, what time, about 9:15 in the evening. Sometimes in the evenings you get a little snacky, and you want something a little sweet, but not too sweet, but a little something to tide you over before you go to bed. A friend of mine had posted on Facebook German pancakes, or also known as Dutch babies pancakes. And usually, I've made these in the past many times with a large frying pan. But the other day I made them in a muffin pan, and they were really, really good. So I want to show you that recipe and how I did it in the muffin pan. It only takes about 20 minutes because they only bake for 15. So it's a nice, quick, little sweet treat. Okay, we're going to start out with 6 eggs and a blender. Before I was whisking all these up in a bowl, whisk, 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 tire it all out and everything. And then I saw somebody suggested a blender, and I thought, shoot, for a quickie evening thing, blender works just fine. I made these the other morning for the boys when they were here for breakfast. Put a little powdered sugar on them, gone. They were all gone that quick. So 6 eggs and 1 cup of milk. Preferably your milk and your eggs are at room temperature. However, I never think of anything in time to put it all and let it sit on the counter for a while. So it just gets as it gets. Now, 6 eggs, 1 cup milk, a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, and a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla. I have to make my fresh vanilla again. I had to buy this time. Now, the recipe does not call for it. However, I've found a couple tablespoons of sugar in this. Adds a lot to it, okay? So just a couple tablespoons of regular granulated sugar. I hope I'm going slow enough. And I'm sorry, but I am having a hard time seeing comments because you're so little and far away from me. But we'll work on that in the future. Okay. Now, 1 cup of flour. You didn't know it was a musical. Okay. I'll work on the words later. Just going to blend that out. Does anybody have a blending song? I got rhythm, I got music, I got my guy who could ask for anything more. Okay. That's all mixed. Now at this point, let me back up. So I've preheated my oven at 450. Okay, oven's preheated at 450 with my cast iron pan in the oven. If I was just going to do 1 pan, a single pan, like I've done before, I'd have the big cast iron pan in there. I'm going to pull this out of the oven. This is my muffin pan again. My muffin pan that Lisa DeLuca bought for me. Thank you very much. Okay, so that got hot in there. So it's a big pan, you put a lump of butter in there, make sure the butter melts, about 5 tablespoons all the way through. Since I'm using a muffin pan, I'm going to put a couple tablespoons in 2 of the buckets And then take my little whiskey brush and make sure I coat all of my little, you can't see this, can you? Yeah, you can a little bit. Let me move the blender. Okay. So now I'm just taking the butter around. And you want a good amount of butter in each one of these. It's not like you're just doing a little bit of coat. You want to see like a little bubble under there. You want to see butter floating at the bottom. What happens is with this all preheated and hot, it starts setting up as soon as the batter hits these little wells. Now, that's good, okay. I'm going to take only about 1/3 of a cup and put it in each one of these. Not that it has to be exactly, but in a big frying pan, what this is, it really works up the edges, goes all the way around the pan. You get a few wrinkles on the inside of the pan. It's very, very pretty and very dramatic. However, with this pan, since it's a muffin pan, they really dome up like almost like some kind of a pastry puff, but they're a pancake. And then you hit them with the powdered sugar afterwards, which is really good. Okay. I do have some in the oven that I'll pull out and show you in a few minutes. So you're not going to have to wait around forever to see the food. There, and just squeezed out. Enjoy that, whatever was dripping off the bottom of my blender. You always need a dog in the kitchen to clean up after you. Okay, you probably can't see this too awful well, but I'm going to open up my oven and slide these in for 15 minutes. Since this is my second batch, these will be for breakfast in the morning. The fresh ones out of the oven are for tonight. Okay. Stephen, give me 15 minutes, please. Stephen is an off-camera personality. He is not going to come on. But I already had my timer set for the first 15-minute batches in there. So, a couple things I want to talk to you about real quick. One of my big concerns moving from Maryland to here, this is kind of silly, but one of my big concerns was the fact that I was going from a gas stove to an electric stove. And I'm like, oh no, cast iron on the electric stove. I was in a bit of a panic. Will I be able, excuse me, to use my cast iron again? Or is that phase all over because it's an electric stove? And it's got a glass top. Oh my. So I'm going to have to grab powdered sugar. So, I've been adjusting and having to adjust my recipes just a little bit. With an electric stove, you just have to anticipate a little bit more. You know, as soon as something starts boiling on a gas stove, you can turn it down right away to a simmer, so you're not burning things. On the electric stove, as soon as it starts to boil, you need to turn it way down right away because it takes a while for it to catch up. And cast iron too retains the heat. The electric, you know, retains the heat. So you just have to anticipate a little bit and turn things down a little bit sooner than you normally would. The other thing I found out that I had not considered, but somebody had mentioned in one of my cast iron groups before, this is my absolute favorite great big skillet for making dinner, okay? However, on the cast iron stove, I don't know if you can see this or not, it's not flat. See how it spins? Because the glass top is flat top. This pan is not flat, so it spins rather than just sitting flat on there. So it doesn't have as good contact with the electric elements to give it the even heat that we're looking for. So it's a little bit more shady that way. But it still works, and I'll still use it. Another pan that I have, this pan was my grandmother's. It's an old Griswold. I'm using this one actually quite a bit right now. This was my grandmother's. My aunt and mother had it, and they gave it to me not too long ago. This one, let's sits perfectly flat on the table. It will not spin, it will not move at all. So that one's very good. Works very nice for me. Like I say, it's a Griswold, old one. One of the things people always cautioned about too with the glass stoves is not to move the pan very much because you can scratch the glass. This is glass and ceramic, and I can't say I've really scooted things around vigorously on the stovetop, but I have moved pans around and from burner to burner and everything, have not had any issues with any kind of scratching. Again, if I had my great big, 3-gallon pot on there full of food, I'd definitely be more cautious in picking that up and moving it rather than trying to slide it around because of the weight that it carries. This is a pot that I got just before moving, and I'm really happy with this one. I should have brought my other pot down. Shh, don't listen. I already had a pot this size, and so to get another one the same size is kind of like, oh, what do you need those for? The really neat thing about this is the pot that I have that's similar to this was my father's. And on the back, it was stamped. It was a recreation of a Wagner ware pot. It was a recreation, made in the, I believe, 1980s or something, representative of the originals. This one is the original. So now I have the original and the remake. And it's got the lid. Lids are very hard to find with your cast iron. The night that we were packing the truck up and getting ready to move, one of our neighbors in Maryland had been picking up a few of our used items that we were no longer taking with us and we were putting out to the street. And she had picked up a few things. She came over to talk and she mentioned how she picks things up, fixes them up, cleans them, resells them and whatnot. She has a garage sale business almost. And I said, well, if you ever come across any cast iron, let me know. Being that we were going to be gone 10 hours later. She says, oh, I do have one at home. She brought it to me. It's a chicken fryer. This thing was all rusted out, looking nasty and everything. And my timer's done. And I cleaned this whole thing up and used it several times. It's wonderful. And I believe it is also one of the more original Wagners because it's unmarked on the bottom. Okay. I'm going to pull this batch out of the oven now. So, as I told you, usually you'd make this in one pan as one big pancake. And what I showed you a moment ago was using it in a muffin pan. And it makes about 11 different muffins. What I did before you guys came along, I actually used my biscuit pan. Because the pan is hot and you're pouring the batter into it, some of that batter sets up on the bottom right away. So what I did is I put a big spoonful of apple pie filling in each of those. So now I'm going to have that pancake, hopefully, covering up the apple pie filling in the middle. I've never done this before. You're going to be the first ones to see it with me. But that's just taking a recipe and adapting it, trying it out, and having fun with it. So let's see what we got. Poof. That's a face full of hot air. Yeah, I think we're happy with these. Can you see how these puffed up out of the pan? Do you see the apples on the inside? Yeah, this worked. When I made the muffin kind yesterday, I was going to put fruit into it, but they're so small. If I put fruit into them, they would have exploded. That's why I thought, I'm going to try it with my biscuit pan. And if I'm going to make these again and try it with my biscuit pan, I'm going to show all my friends. So let me get a little plate. Do you like how big my kitchen is now? I do. Okay. The nice thing about these is when I was making them the last couple days, they slid right out of the pan. Look at that. It lifted right up and out. And again, they're light, but they've got that pie filling in them. And of course I got to put a little powdered sugar on it. And that's just a little strainer. Yeah, the countertop wants it too. The countertop loves a little sugar. So I'm going to cover these up. But the pans, because of all the butter that was in there, and then the hot dough hitting the hot butter, nothing sticks. It's wonderful. Can you see this? How it kind of made that hollow little indentation there, and the apples are sitting in there? Somebody's, I think, wanting to try these right away. How much time do I have left on my other timer, sir? 6 minutes. I'm going to hand these to him, and I'm going to have one. And by then, oh, you're coming over. Here you go. Okay. Let me grab one. These would be so good with vanilla ice cream. And again, lifted right out of the pan. That's hot. Can you see the steam coming off of it, how hot it is? Look at the inside. Now, when I made these plain, we put syrup on them, and they're really good. I wish I could read all your comments. Sorry, guys. I will read them and reply to them after we're done here. That's good. I did not take a TV bite. Excuse me. You got the cinnamon in there. You got the apples in there. I didn't say anything, but the other day when I bought the apple pie filling, I also bought cherry pie filling and blueberry pie filling, because I might try a cobbler later in the week. We don't eat like this all the time. But sometimes you just need that little treat, like I said, before bed. So it's got a very light pancake texture to the cake. The little bit of sugar in helps with this part of it that you get towards the bottom that doesn't have the powdered sugar on top. Gives it just a little hint of sweetness without getting a toothache from the sugariness. Very good. I'm going to look in the oven and see how we're doing. Hi, Dobby. Yeah. Look at that. Do you see how high these are? And they're just lightly browned. They're not horrible browned or burnt or anything. Very lightly browned. They just rose right up. They're beautiful. Ooh. And that'll be breakfast tomorrow. Well, guys, getting settled in my new house. I'm glad you could all join me. Any suggestions, any recipes you'd like to see, feel free to give suggestions. I like suggestions. And later on in the week, probably, we'll find another recipe to share. Hopefully it won't be the spur of the moment at 9 o'clock at night when we got the munchies, but who knows? It's happened before. Thank you. From my kitchen to yours. You're all fabulous.